So now, if you can put your hands together, welcoming Mr. Shrikant Madhav Vaidya, who's the former chairman of Indian Oil. Thank you so much for taking the time out and joining us. And I don't think any introduction could have done justice. So I'd like you to, say a few words about your career, yourself, and what you're up to now. Thank you.
Thank you very much for getting me here. Actually, looking at the sessions so far, I feel like a guy who has come with an umbrella after reading the weather report, So I'll be talking about the reality, something which we all should know, because it's been too positive, too much of alignment is not right. We should get to know the reality. So actually, I was working for Indian Oil, India's leading company for fossil fuels, and I was 37 years experience, and I superannuated last year as the chairman of Indian Oil. So I think that's enough. We can start now.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Mr. Vaidya. Perhaps the first question will be what you saw on the initial slides. You saw your former company's logo and what you've done in Panipat. So perhaps you can speak a little bit about, how you initiated that, the challenges you went through, and what do you think should have happened otherwise, and what advice you have for future projects?
Actually, Panipat project, that is the 10 KTA green hydrogen plant, is currently one of the biggest projects that have happened in India. And it is at Panipat refinery where hydrogen, as we all know, is used for desulfurization. So part of the hydrogen will be green hydrogen now. So we thought Panipat is a better place to start that, because Panipat is Indian Oil's very like a jewel in the crown. It has got petrochemicals, it has got a refinery of 15 million tons, expanding to 25 million tons per annum. And the best part is we had some land available, because I firmly believe that land will be one of the bottlenecks in the days to come for setting up a green hydrogen plant close to the user facility. So Panipat, we had all that. And so as a government company, we are a public sector company, we realized that we have to take the first step in the green hydrogen mission that the government had launched so ambitiously. And unless we take some strides, this entire green hydrogen, whatever ambition we have as a country, will not happen. So that was one of the first earliest plants that to get a green hydrogen plant that is coming up in 2 years from now. I think L&T is constructing it. So that will be one big step in the green hydrogen endeavor of India.
So maybe expanding a little bit on that, let's talk about the larger Panipat refineries as well. How much hydrogen were you consuming? How much did you replace? And moving forward, what should we do?
Actually, this is just a 10 KTA plant. Panipat itself is about 40 KTA consumption. So there is a huge potential there. But the cost that was discovered at Panipat was about $4.64 per kg, which is quite high. And eventually, whatever we spend in the refining sector for the fuels, it has to finally go down to the consumers, the buyers. So I think we are waiting for the cost to come down, because 4.65 is an extremely high cost. But I was seeing from the slide what was shown in the morning, that one BPCL tender has come in the range of BPCL or HPCL, I didn't see that. It had come lower than 4.65. So I'm very happy that the costs are coming down. And with scale, the cost will come down. That is the whole idea of going in for this first project of Panipat.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vaidya. Now, we'll move to the topic for today, which is shipping and maritime. I think, some of you all must be wondering why is Mr. Vaidya talking about shipping, but I can tell you he is, he's done his homework, his research, and I think his background has given him a lot of insights to this, but also I think at this stage we need people with experience like yourself who have done large projects, run large organizations to actually advise. So, the first question is, they call it a hard-to-abate sector. For us, we see that this is one industry that can be regulated globally. How realistic is this net zero ambition that IMO is talking about by 2050? And what does a credible transition pathway look like?
Okay. So the hard-to-abate sector include aviation, include shipping, the steel industry, and to a certain extent, even the cement industry. But the cement industry is slightly different because the reaction of calcination itself produces CO2. So even a change of fuel will not eliminate that. So cement will have a mixture of green plus it has to have CCUS. Only then cement can go green. Now coming down to this sector, why it is called hard to abate is one of the technological challenge, and second, the challenge to create the infrastructure all over the world. See, whatever new fuels we are talking, they are not drop-in fuels. Let us try to understand. Apart from the biofuels, these are not drop-in fuels. They will require an exclusive setup for this, and that becomes a big challenge. Now, just to get a feel, today the world is consuming about 102 million barrels of oil every day. Out of that, 5.1 million barrels per day is used for bunker fuels. So it's a huge amount, 5.1 million barrels per day, and we are trying to dislocate that. Now, assuming, as a theory case, we do it with green ammonia, then we'll require 600 million tons of ammonia to get rid of this. And the 600 million tons of ammonia comes from 114 million tons of green hydrogen. As we saw in the morning, the total hydrogen consumption today globally is 100 million tons. So just to decarbonize the shipping, we'll require 114 million tons of green hydrogen and then 600 million tons of green ammonia. Now, just to make this green hydrogen, going by the basic fundamentals, normally 1 kg of hydrogen requires about 50 kilowatt hour of green energy and 5 kilowatt hour for the balance plant. So 1 kg of green hydrogen requires 55 kilowatt hour of green energy. Now to make 100 million tons of green ammonia, green hydrogen, you will require 5,500 terawatt hour of green energy. Today, globally, the green energy that is produced from solar and wind is in the range of 4,500 terawatt hour. So we will be requiring something beyond what is the world is actually producing today as green energy. And this is 20%, 5,500 terawatt hour is 20% of the entire electricity that is consumed in the world today. So what I'm trying to say is that whatever we are targeting is an humongous task. It is something that is really stretching the entire system to the limits. And today we have got more than 5,000 ports, tens and thousands of vessels. They will all require retrofitting. And this retrofitting is a job of 3 to 6 months. The number of dry docks where the retrofitting does is not many. Some are there in China, some are there in Korea, there is one in Netherlands also. So I think that entire thing has to be thought over before we actually draw a path for net zero in the shipping sector. And the current IMO regulation only talks of the reduction in the greenhouse gas emission. They are saying 20% by 2030, 70% by 2040, and 100% by 2050. So actually this is very, very sketchy, superficial numbers we're talking of. Once we get down in the details, as we do, as they all say in Toyota especially, that the devil is in the details. So once we go into the details, we realize what a difficult task it is. So I'm not trying to discourage anybody, I'm not trying to be anti-green, but I'm only trying to tell that whatever we are targeting is something that has to be done in a very calibrated manner, and it just can't be done by headlines.
Mr. Vaidya, thank you so much for setting that context. Clearly, a net zero translation is, in the way that you put it for the shipping sector, 114 million tons of green hydrogen. And today's consumption. And for a growing economy that's going to grow larger. And I think also you emphasized on the renewable energy that is required to produce these green fuels. So the task is humongous. I think you've answered that question very clearly, that this is far from reality today. But I'm sure that, considering you with your experience, we know that you're not here to, put anybody down. What are the steps that we need to take, right? Where's the starting point? Where's the first step? And from what you've seen in the ecosystem, what has been good and what do we need to really take a check on?
Actually, I can just give an example. When India migrated from BS4, for the people who have come from foreign countries, it was Euro 4 emissions to Euro 6 emissions. That is a good example. I don't know whether we can directly relate it to it, but I leave it to the wisdom of the audience, whether we can learn something from that. In the year 2016, January, a decision was taken by the government of India that we are going to migrate from Euro 4 to Euro 6. I mean, actually, it was BS4 to BS6. BS is Bharat Stage Standards. And so we had and it was said that 1st April 2020, entire ecosystem has to shift to BS6. Now what it means was, it was a message for the oil industry. We had to upgrade our refineries to make that BS6 fuel. BS6 was basically reducing the sulfur content. It was 50 ppm earlier in petrol and diesel. It had to come down to 10 ppm. And the manufacturing spec was 8 ppm in the refineries. So we had to upgrade our refineries, and together the oil companies spent 30,000 crores for upgrading the refineries. Then we have 20,000 kilometer length of pipelines. So we had to flush these pipelines clean and get the Euro 6 product in that. And then 50,000 petrol pay stations and pumps. We had to flush clean each and every petrol pump to get that 10 ppm product. At the same time, the automobile industry, and their mouthpiece is the SIAM, that is Society of Indian Automobile Manufacturers. They were in with us, and they ensured that the entire automobile industry also rolls out BS6 compliant vehicles by 1st April 2020. So this was a very seamlessly done. In fact, the last part of the rollout was during the time of COVID. But still, we could manage it. And now I will tell you why it was possible there and what were the things that really helped us. One was there was a 4-year clear lead given to the automobile companies that you have to shift to BS6. It was not left to chance, because even today, as I speak now, we have still about 60% of the vehicles which are not BS6 vehicles, because the BS6 vehicles came from 1st April 2020, and a vehicle has a life of 15 years normally. So even today, we have a large inventory of BS4 vehicles flying on the road. But those from 1st April 2020, it became BS6. Fuel was BS6. The cost of the vehicles, for two-wheelers, it went up by 10%. For four-wheelers, it went up by 15%. And for heavy diesel trucks, it went up by 20%, the cost, because of the new BS6 introduction of the catalytic converters, etc., for reducing the particulate matter, the NOx, etc. So the cost, extra cost, was borne by the consumers, the people who are going to use the vehicles. In fact, in the year 2021 and 21-22, there was a sharp decline in the automobile sales. Some of them contributed by COVID also, but also this increased cost. So the cost was taken up by the consumers, and the fuel was rolled out, and BS6 fuel was a drop-in fuel. It was not something new. We had to simply drop in the current BS4 compliant fuel. And so the entire ecosystem was used, the same ecosystem was used, and the rollout was happening. Now compare with what we are talking today about the shipping sector. Normally a shipping vessel normally has a life of 20-25 years. Now, when we say that we need to go for net zero by 2050, it means retrofitting all the vessels which are still having a productive age. Now, this retrofitting, as I told you, is a 3 months to 6 months job of dry docks. So that has to be done. Plus, there is no mandate. There can't be a mandate saying that you will only make the vessels for green ammonia or green methanol from so-and-so date. Such a mandate also is not there, because IMO doesn't have that mandate to say that. It can be only an advisory body. So there will be some vessels which will be compliant with ethanol, some will be compliant for green ammonia, bulk of them will be compliant with the current bunker fuel. So you can understand the complexity at the port. You have to make available 2 to 3 types of fuel for the different type of vessels that are keep coming. So this complexity also makes a big difference in the way the rollout happens. So I think all these challenges need to be granularly thought of before we actually give a target for net zero by 2050.
Mr. Vaidya, a lot to pick out of what you just said. And I was an automobile dealer, and I remember the change from BS4 to BS6. It was very chaotic. But now, it's good that we're reflecting on that. Cost was borne by the consumer. And as a dealer, it was only profitable for us, except for inventory losses, etc. Now, with green hydrogen, with maritime decarbonization, or steel or refineries, right? The mandates were being discussed, deliberated, and I think even Mr. Balla has seen several proposals for mandates, and it's continuing to come today as well to MNRE. But there is hesitancy. There's all of these things that we don't know. What are your views on mandates coming in?
The moment you give mandates, the cost is going to go up. So unless we as a country, I'm talking of India now, we are ready to bear a higher cost only then, because nobody is going to absorb the increased cost for going green in their balance sheet. Eventually, it will be passed down to the consumer. That is one part. Secondly, we can have taxation on carbon. I think that also will be one way by which this money can be garnered. The green hydrogen mission also has got some values, but then it will be highly inadequate the moment the mandates roll in. So the mandates has to come with a mechanism by which we are able to compensate, say for the steel industry. Suppose the steel industry wants to go green, then whatever the increased cost of the new fuel, that is green hydrogen or green ammonia, they are going to use, that has to be compensated to them. And one more thing, we also talk of steel industry very easily. Let me tell you that the modifications that is required in the blast furnace, where actually this whole thing will change, is a huge task. McKinsey had done a study that said that $3 trillion investment is required to modify all the steel plants globally for consuming green fuels. So even that has to be configured in the overall cost. One is the cost of the fuel, one is the cost of these modifications that will happen, which also are happening in the shipping sector. So you have to retrofit them. So this is something that has to be thought of and in a manner that the age of the vessels also needs to be considered. Now the age of the vessel is not being considered at all. They have a fine from $100 to $380. That fine is for who pollutes the most will pay $380 per ton of CO2, and who pollutes less is about $100. But eventually, this has to be related that in a very granular way to the age of the fleet and how we are going to go about it.
So Vaidya, you also spoke about all the, what you had to do on the infrastructure when you moved from BS4 to BS6. And now clearly with shipping, I think that's a conversation we'll have in depth, and I'm sure Captain Prashant and some other experts who've joined us will have thoughts to share about it. But let's talk about green hydrogen, right? And now, green hydrogen is only used in your refineries and fertilizers today, but today we're talking about the fueling stations for buses, and everyone wants to do green hydrogen, some even at their homes, right, to power. So now, in this kind of transition, when it comes to infrastructure, right? Can existing infrastructure be reconverted for green hydrogen? Can that be done in a short time? Should new infrastructure come in? And what's the cost of that?
You're talking for the automobile sector?
No, just generally for green hydrogen adoption across all the sectors, not just adoption.
You talk of sector-wise, like suppose we take automobile sector. It requires a totally different setup to be put up for green hydrogen. Because green hydrogen as such, you're well aware, is the smallest molecule. It escapes from everything. And it creates metal brittlety, so it has to be handled very carefully. So once I talk of the sector, I need to have a totally different ecosystem in place. I mean, that is the problem that comes when we talk of these new generation fuels. Whatever is drop-in, like biofuels, it is a drop-in fuel. Biofuels can also come in the shipping sector. They are simply drop-in fuels. There is no complication. But the moment you talk of a new sector, new type of fuels, you will require an ecosystem to be built. And that ecosystem has to match what is happening with the present fossil fuel ecosystem. Because once you have an ecosystem as good as the fossil system, only then you can start reducing the fossil system. We are here at the fossil system. You can't start reducing this when you are here. You have to come to this level, and then you start reducing the fossil system. So I think that is the challenge we all need to understand. That challenge has to be overcome in a very graduated way. We can't jump places. We have to go step by step. But what is happening is now, in the book of net zero, from chapter 1, we are suddenly jumping to chapter 10. That is not possible. We have to go through each chapter-wise and see what is to be done, because eventually energy access, energy justice, and energy affordability has to matter. And that also matters for a country like India. It matters more than ever. So I think once we have very clear about our ambitions, they should be wedded with energy realism. That is my only point.
As much as there's climate urgency, we can't skip chapters. We have to go step by step and walk this through. And I think this reflects something our mission director said last year, that we are competing with an industry that was established over 7 to 8 decades, right? And we are not even a few years old as the ecosystem. But with that, Mr. Vaidya, I want to see what the audience have to ask you. So, anybody in the audience would like to have questions for Mr. Vaidya. If we can have more mics for the audience, please.
Easy questions, difficult ones, Google.
Thank you so much, sir. So I am from TERI, leading this biofuel vertical. We work closely with IOCL, of course, for this Indo-Finland project for testing this biodiesel blending with diesel. So one of the points that you have mentioned, biofuel, you have very rightly said biofuels are dropping fuel, and also under this National Green Shipping Ports, and Terry undertook some case studies with the directive from the DGS for biodiesel blending with marine fuel. And based on those case studies, it was submitted to BIS. Now standard is being harmonized, considering this MEPC guideline. Now, you know, and everybody knows that the raw materials for biodiesel is not adequately available. The quantum of fuel that is being consumed in the shipping sector, we can see that even though we talk of 1% biodiesel blending, we cannot make it available. Going forward, for the other biofuels like ethanol, bioethanol, one of the points you have mentioned that the bunkering for bioethanol. As per the DGS bunkering guideline, the flash point of fuel should be 60 degrees. So like biodiesel, now as per the 2024 August guideline, MEPC guideline, May 2024, now 100% FEM percent biodiesel can be blended, but ethanol cannot be blended 100%. We understood that IOCL did some studies for blending of ethanol with marine fuel, and up to 5 or 7% it is compatible, it seems. So what is your suggestions, directions, so that India can look for doing some case studies for ethanol blending with this marine fuel and set some standard? When you say 5%, for shipping 5% is huge quantum. And India under biofuel policy already achieved that 20% blending with road transport. And why not cater, if it is compatible, to make it used in the shipping sector as well?
Okay. So actually you're right, biofuels actually can solve a lot of problems. And we did do a study. It was not on marine fuels, it was basically for diesel.
Yes.
See, India is a diesel economy. Nearly 45% of my consumption is diesel. So unless the diesel is reduced, consumption, only then the crude imports reduce. Otherwise it doesn't make a sense. So we tried to blend 5% with diesel. As far as the engine condition was concerned, engine performance was concerned, there was no issue at all. But the only thing is, obviously, ethanol is having a very low flash.
Yes.
So overall, the flash point of diesel came down. Today it is 35 degrees centigrade, BIS standard. It came down to 10 and 11. So then it becomes very hazardous to, you know,
How about adding some additives like ethyl acetate? Because countries have done such case studies for additives.
So actually, because of that flashpoint problem, but actually even if you add an additive, see, you are a scientist, you will know that whatever you add to suppress that, but the initial vapors will come out at 11 degrees centigrade. So you can't avoid that. So you have to bear with a lower flash product, which probably was a very risky affair, because then you have to change, because it becomes a class A product. Suddenly, diesel becomes a class A product. So we have to have a different storage, different firefighting mechanisms. So that's why that it was kept on hold. I'll not say it is dropped.
Do you recommend doing some test studies in the,
shipping sector we have not tried out,
Yeah.
but it can be tried out for the shipping sector.
Because globally, countries have done ethanol and butanol. Butanol has, of course, higher blending compatibility up to 40 to 15%. But currently, the technologies for butanol,
it can be thought of. It can be thought of, certainly.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much for that question, Doctor. Anyone else in the audience? Yes.
So Shrikant Madhav Vaidya, it's about mobility, because I ran a hydrogen fuel cell startup. We are about to set up India's biggest fuel cell plant and exporting to Europe, as all other major players are doing. So, what I observed in this is I got a couple of projects for hydrogen retrofit. I'm not even able to find a proper technology person, sir. The technology gap is huge. A similar thing was said about EV when we started EV in 2009. Almost everyone in here discouraged me. Similarly, when I'm doing heavy mobility fuel cell, similar situation is happening right now. As a visionary, why don't India take the technology leadership rather than following others? Because we're still importing fuel cells. That's actually, as a startup, I'm very happy, because almost all the majority companies are importing fuel cells. Why don't we develop our own technology, sir? It's the same story in 2010, 2026, the same story.
Yeah, I think, government is giving adequate push for developing the technology also, because being Atmanirbhar in our own technology, because that is the reason why the mission of the government is to be a hydrogen or a green ammonia exporter in the world. That's what we are having ambition, that's the aspiration. So I think we are certainly supporting more and more technology inputs, which can help us to reduce the overall cost of the green ammonia and green hydrogen.
But we don't even have a policy for fuel cell production, sir.
Okay, then I think Mr. Bhalla is here. Yes. I think he's hearing
I know what I'm talking about. I have clarity. So there is no policy, sir.
Pardon? Okay.
People with
But
the
your point
government
is well
badges as
taken.
well.
We need to be a leader in the technology also.
No, sir, I'm trying to be export leader because no Indian company is exporting fuel cells. Right now, they're trying to export green ammonia.
Okay.
I'm actually trying very hard, but there is no policy, sir.
Okay, so
Yeah.
That feedback taken,
there's a
Menu,
point
we
you have
will
to take-
make
there's a
sure we
point you have to take up.
put it up.
Yes.
Yes, Mr. Vaidya, yes. No, this is not something that's just for the startup at Heisel, but also some of our indigenous electrolyzer companies have represented this.
Hi. So my name is Deepak, and I'm the co-founder and CEO of Pinaka Green. It's a startup, and right now we are working more in the industries decarbonization journey, helping them out. And I'm here to understand a typical startup journey in the shipping sector, and what would be your guidance, how we can get started, and a couple of steps to go ahead with.
I think you heard me out. Whatever the challenges are there in the shipping sector, we need to overcome that. And one of the ways is to have a fuel which is low cost. Only then, see today, if you go by the cost part of it, if the bunker fuel is having a unit of 1, then the next stage of green ammonia is 4 times. Green methanol is 3 times. But green methanol is not 100% green because it still gives out CO2 when it's burned. So unless this price is cracked, and also please remember that the energy density of green ammonia and green methanol is very less. It's just half of what the bunker fuel gives, which of course we can't change because that is basically physics and chemistry, but then we can try to bring down the cost of the retrofitting, the cost of the infrastructure, and the basic cost of the product itself. And as we were saying, being the technology leader can help us to bring down the cost. So finally, cost makes a big difference on how we are able to manage this decarbonization of the shipping sector.
Oh, thank you, sir.
I think that'll be the last question. Braj, do you have a question? Okay, the last one from Braj Nandan, please.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your insights. I have a straightforward questions. Refineries with 200 KTPA and Indian Oil with 80 KTPA in their portfolio. How do you see in this financial year, 2026-27, the tenders coming up from the refineries? Panipat has taken the initiative. Now, what about Bathura? What about other refineries of
You have
India?
to ask the current leadership of Indian Oil. They can give you a roadmap. But obviously, we are committed as a company, I can tell you that, not only IOC, but all the 3 OMCs. We are committed to promoting the green hydrogen mission. So I think the other refineries will follow.
Okay, thank you, sir.
So, can we have a round of applause for Mr. S.M. Vaidya? And Mr. Vaidya writes quite actively. He has touched upon quite a lot of topics. So please follow him on LinkedIn or Twitter, where you see more of his thoughts and ideas being shared. So if you could...
Very different. Thank you, sir.